Hello and welcome to episode number 28 of the Nasty Metal Podcast. Yes, finally. Since I announced that I was going to have this recorded last week and that it was going to be released. It would have been last Saturday, which would be Saturday the 17th, but I just never got around to recording it last week. So I pretty much held it off, and I didn't say anything on social media, so I apologize. It's just that shit going through my head at, 200 miles per hour, and just not trying to just block things out, whatever, just, again, train of thought just completely going out one ear, and a lot of just array of different shit was just going on. So I just didn't really find I guess in a way I just couldn't find the time to actually just say a quick message or put a quick message out on social media and say like, sorry, I have to postpone the Nasty Metal Podcast episode, 28. I have to postpone it to probably next week, maybe next month, who knows. So I just couldn't do that. And I apologize. But here I am, and I think it was a good idea because of eventually I ended up getting a question. So, yes, the Q&A segment has somewhat returned for this episode. So we'll get to that. And also I'm going to be discussing a little thing here and there. But not too much that's going to be completely discussed on this episode. But I'm at least going to try my best to get some little topics out here and there. But really, there's just not a whole lot. So this could be a short episode, but this could also end up being extended a bit. It could end up being extended to a bit long. Maybe a little over an hour, possibly. But we'll see. Right now, though, normally what I do at the start of these podcast episodes, I go through at least the scheduled content for at least the next couple of weeks. Normally I do that. And so I've got at least some scheduled content. So right now I got my phone and I could... creaking chair. So right now I got my phone, which has my scheduling in the calendar part of my smartphone here. Again, what was it? Android, Google Pixel. Yep. Maybe one day I might upgrade. I don't know. Who knows? Either way, let me just get into at least what I've got scheduled right now. So, again, you already noticed I already uploaded, a day ago, my Album of the Week episode, which would have been, again, episode number 175, actually. It would have been 75, and that would have been, Under the Blade, debut album from Twisted Sister. So that's at least for that Monday. The album review for this week, since as part of my, scheduled content posts that I do, where I will tell you what's going to get released in advance in the week, whatever. Again, on Friday the 23rd, again, September the 23rd, is, of course, the reviews, episode number 295, and that's, of course, is for a band, part of the Horror, Pain, Gore, Death Productions label that I've been getting promos from via Gmail. It's, of course, a more newer band. I guess they get labeled as like a death metal, or not really death, I take that back. Like a doom metal / post-metal band. A little bit of hardcore, at least modern day hardcore, thrown in there, and different. I'll save my thoughts for that review. But the band is, of course, it's their debut full-length album. It is Harvest of Ash, and the album is titled Ache and Impulse. So there, again, it's actually, it gets released this week, which will be on the 23rd. So... in a way, whenever I get these promos from Horror, Pain, Gore, Death Productions via my Gmail account, if it's going to be a promo for an album that's probably going to be within a certain day in like the next month, because of the guy gives me at least these promos at least a month in advance. So I've had this since, I believe, since August. Since August. So he gives me within a month in advance. So probably in order to probably think that I'm actually going to listen to it right away and probably give it. I mostly tend to listen to this stuff on the week that I'm going to be reviewing this, which is going to be the week of its release date. So it gives me enough time to actually schedule this, and that's usually going to be on its release day, or at least the week, whatever, and that's why I do it. That's how I put this in order, in a way. So that's what I'm doing with these promos, is that I wait to listen to them and review them basically by the time that they're going to get released. So that's pretty much on that week. So there we go. That's what I do. And so again, whenever he gives me these promos in the months in advance, that's why I do. So I'm not going to, I'm just going to stop myself from repeating myself, you know. So there we go. But again, that's going to be this week's album review. Now, for next week, which will be again beginning with Monday, September the 26th, of course, is episode number 176 of the Album of the Week. And that's going to be a spotlight on, it's an anniversary spotlight, probably one of the, since I reviewed the newest Ozzy Osbourne album, and I'm going to get some Ozzy Osbourne into this episode. That's a bit of foreshadowing for something. Since I already reviewed a brand new Ozzy record, the anniversary spotlight episode of the Album of the Week for Monday, September the Monday the 26th is going to be a classic Ozzy record, but a classic Ozzy record when he was fronting Black Sabbath. It is, of course, is the 50th anniversary of 1972's Volume 4. So I'm actually going to get to talk about a really classic album, and possibly, actually it is up there as one of my absolute favorites of course, from Black Sabbath. So I'm actually going to talk about another classic Black Sabbath album, since I've already covered the debut album, Paranoid, and of course Master of Reality. So in a way, to keep it going, time to get on to Volume 4. So there we go. Getting on to some classic Sabbath and classic Ozzy stuff before he got super popular and everything, or in excess and stuff in the 80s. So I'm going to be focusing on his early days. So there we go. Classic stuff there. And of course, the review for that week, which would be released on, funny enough, it's going to be released on September the 30th, which on that day I'll be seeing Raven that day and at Strummers, and opening up for him would be Right At, which is basically at this point Rick Ventura's band. Again, Rick Ventura, if you don't know, was actually was at least part of one of the classic lineups of Riot, at least from Narita up to about Born in America. So, and of course, they got an album out. I'm going to pick it up at the show there. I'm definitely going to try and pick up a copy of it at the show there, and that probably at some point will be a future album review. But I can't wait to see them, and I can't wait to see Raven that night. So, two great bands that night. But the album review that's going to get dropped on that day is going to be, the reviews number 296. It's going to be, since this was recommended to me from, I forgot burp there. One of my subscribers, I forgot his name already, but person recommended me the newest Clovenhoof album, being Time Assassin. So I'm going to be reviewing Time Assassin from Clovenhoof for that day. So that's probably going to be pretty interesting. And what's even cooler is the fact that it's actually probably Clovenhoof's first release under the Heavy Metal Records label. And if you're not familiar with the Heavy Metal Records label, then you're not that smart enough to the new wave of British heavy metal. So there you go. Very synonymous label, Witchfinder General. So there you go. So that's pretty much the scheduling for the 2 weeks here, okay? That's me, the scheduling possibly for Friday the 7th, which I hope is going to be the day I'll be able to, see like Scorpions and Thunder Mother. That's probably going to be when I'll probably, if I pick up the Riot Act album, that will be the day that I drop my review for that album. So there we go. Keeping things up in advance. So there you go, folks. Since I've already hinted at that, I might as well drop what's going to be the Album of the Week episode for basically into the beginning of October. So that'll be the first album review of October, again, the Riot Act one. And of course, the first, who knows, shit could change. But either way, the Album of the Week episode that's going to be for the beginning of October, which will be October the 3rd, is going to be finally covering one of my absolute favorite metal records of all time, since it's going to be seeing its anniversary that month. It is going to be the classic album from Accept. It is Restless and Wild. Can't wait to. Oh my god. Who knows? I might be fluttering through half that review in a way. I might be. But I'm just finally glad to finally, just cover that record in all of its glory on this channel. So there you go. So there it is, folks. There's my scheduled content in a way in 3 weeks in advance. So awesome. So there we go. I pretty much just went through all the scheduled content there for these next 3 weeks. That means the final weeks of September and into the first week of October. So cool. It's fucking badass. Okay, that's a really great way to even kick off the ghoulish the coolest part of the month, or whatever, the ghoulish month in the year. I think is the best way I should have phrased that. That should have been the best way to phrase it, is the ghoulish month in the year. Halloween or October and all of that shit, And I actually have I do have stuff planned out for October. Or I think I should be planning stuff out for October. Right now, it's not quite certain what I've got completely planned out. But I might as well be, since that's coming up, I really should be thinking of that. Oh boy. Now I just kind of look like a deer in headlights in that one. In a way, I probably just, not only was I a deer in headlights, but I'm a deer in headlights that is connected to an oncoming or a semi, and I've just gotten ran over. So, oh boy, I have to definitely need to figure something out as good as possible, because I've got to have some ideas planned out for at least the October month. So there we go. So let's definitely move on to something, and I kind of wanted to bring this one up, and this is funny. I find this to be the funniest shit so far for the month of September. So, if you're one of those that followed a lot of the new wave of thrash metal, that they called it back in the 2000s, then you probably would have been familiar with a particular band that was signed to Heavy Artillery Records. That would be the band called Vektor, who obviously was considered, was it the second coming or whatever, like Voivod or something. I know some people call them Nocturnus clones, but to be quite honest, I would say even like Nocturnus were like the death metal equivalent of Voivod. So they just had that similar thing going on to them. At Vektor, they definitely had that Voivod aspect, especially even their logo. Though at the same time, they had a little bit of a slight black metal kind of vocal style going on a little bit, just because how screechy some of it is. Even though I don't know I would ever call it full-on black metal. It's just that there was a little bit of that sort of aspect thrown into it, but it was definitely very proggy thrash metal. Though even more aggressive probably than like Voivod. But if you at least were following that scene, then you obviously know that name. That's a very familiar name with you. And so if you obviously were huge fans of Vektor, you probably were following them, and that means you followed them even during their darkest points. Because at one point they split up, which was... It was in 2016 And obviously, it had everything to do with, at this point, it shouldn't be any brand new news to you. David DeSanto, again, who was the vocalist and also guitar player for the band. Let's just say he got into a lot of hot water and and we're talking about some boiling hot water with the authorities. And I can just bring it up then. June 3rd of 2013, during, I guess the Scion Rock Fest in Memphis, Tennessee, he was arrested for disorderly conduct, apparently allegedly dousing a protester, probably in beer or something, it said. Was it? Yes, it says right here in beer. And for who knows, he could have been inebriated, which means he was drunk. That's what inebriated means, is he was obviously drunk. It's a very good stand. He was probably drunk or just being a fucking asshole. Well, we'll get into that a bit. Because, obviously, because of that little fucking ridiculous shit there, it obviously put a little bit of a damper on Vektor, because it seems like, oh boy, I guess they're gonna get run-ins in the law because of this guy has become in reckless endangerment to society. And so now people are, it obviously really screwed things up because of it's funny how they were lucky enough to get one more record out, at least in 2016. And that would have been Terminal Redux. And they basically just called it quits because I guess everyone else was leaving the band. From what I can tell is that it was because of internal issues. Probably because of David DeSanto and now his personality and his very disorderly conduct with the people, folks, with the people, especially in the audience, especially what happened at the Scion Rock Fest. I'm pronouncing it wrong in a way, and I don't know if I should apologize or not there. But in Memphis, Tennessee, he was just, boy, wow. Just crazy. Well, what makes this shit even more crazier is that after splitting up, David DeSanto's lifestyle, not only was it on a downhill spiral, but it went further downhill, because by 2019, he ended up getting slapped with an abuse order for, including a temporary protection stuff, were issued against him on June 11th of 2019. But apparently, again, it's because of allegations, even though it's not so much allegations. There's a video that actually supports these allegations of domestic abuse, again, from his then wife. And it's really, at times, pretty sad to watch. And it seems like is that this person, David DeSanto, obviously couldn't keep himself out of trouble, and it seems like he just couldn't conduct himself very well. He just couldn't. And it seems like ever since 2013 and what took place in Memphis, Tennessee, especially at the show, with dousing a poor fan with beer, for what fucking reason? Why? Why did he do that? What was the fan begging for a drink? Or was he just drunk? Or was he just being a dick because of, I don't know, was he being a little bit too much inspired by the antics of Marilyn Manson? I don't fucking know why he decided he had to do that. But I guess in a way he thought, well, you know what? I can just tonight I can just be a real asshole. And from there on, it bled into his relationship with his wife. And that's just real great there. And obviously from there, you would think that actually would have kept more the guys to probably want to stay away from David DeSantos and look elsewhere and create another band instead. But no, basically a year later, they decide that they want to get back together with David DeSanto, because I guess what Was he trying to get himself better? It was like, oh God, this is not the way I should be conducting myself as a human being on this planet. I shouldn't be doing that. And I don't know. I want to at least look at positives and really think that people like David DeSanto can get themselves back in shape. They can possibly, get themselves better. And, put, in a way, re-bandage up wounds, and that obviously he was creating. He was causing a lot of damage in his personal life. So you would think that he would find a way to change that and maybe fix it and prove that he can be a better person, and this was just some dark days in his life, and that it could be because of depression. Who knows? And for a band that obviously, who had been playing since 2002 under the name, Locrian, who's been playing for this long and had a pretty decent record deal before Heavy Artillery got bought out by Earache. You would think that they still, going on Sentry? Who originally had these guys? It was Earache still. Earache. Having still a pretty decent deal with Earache Records, you would think that they would still just be still great and full of guys that are very enthusiastic and obviously are at the best shape of their life. But instead, somehow they quickly went to the depression part of a rock band story. Like the something like with Aerosmith, whatever, in like the late 70s, it's like all the substance abuse just got so much to the heads of the band that they're now like hating each other. They're not beating each other up, whatever. They're shouting expletives at each other, they're throwing shit at each other, all of that scandalous crap. So it's like they just went fast to it because they couldn't wait until the 6th or 8th record to actually to go into straight turmoil, and they couldn't. I guess in a way, the title was Terminal Redux from 2016. Probably in a way foreshadowed that because of obviously it was terminal the relationship within the members and David DeSanto and his personal life. It was in terminal oil. I know, I probably shouldn't be laughing at that, but honestly, it's just, if he ain't trying to find a way to really behave himself in public, then maybe it's a good thing what happened recently, because, was it like a year or so ago, it wasn't 2020, when they got back together, they released a brand new track, and in 2021, which was last year, they released their brand new EP. Was it Transmissions of Chaos, it was titled, or was it a split? It was a 2-track EP, which of course features the track called Activate, which was their first release in, since 2016, and then another track on there, which is Dead by Dawn. Don't know, I don't think it's a cover of the Deicide track, and who knows, if it might probably have some inspirations from the Evil Dead movie, maybe. Either way, that was it. And then this year, it was announced, was it like a day in advance, that they were signed to Sentry Media, and then the next fucking morning, Sentry Media basically drops them. But at the same time, I'm just it's like, I don't know, do I really find it funny, or do I find it sad that they immediately, in years, they get signed to a label, or at least they're like back on the label in years, since Earache Records and the 2016 album Terminal Redux, and then they're like immediately dropped. And you should know why. You should know why that they got dropped so easy. It's because of, it's stupid on Sentry Media's part that, in a way too, because the information was out there about the domestic issues and the arrest records of David DeSanto. It's out there in the public, in a way. Not that his public records are out in public, but just the general information of the history of him getting arrested and him getting slapped with abuse charges. It's all up there. And again, there's a video. There's a video of basically of what his then wife filmed of him basically being very abusive. There's video of it. And Sentry Media are going to act like, oh, we didn't fucking know. We didn't know. You idiots. That's why I think Sentry Media are just one of those where it's like it's almost like with what happened with, I'm going to bring up a little bit of wrestling here, but AEW and freaking Brian Kendrick. It's like AEW announces him, he's going to have a match with Jon Moxley, but then like that day they then announced that they pulled him off because of past comments that he made in the past that were very anti-Semitic came out, and they were very like almost conspiracy theory like anti-Semitic comments and everything. It was really bad, and it's like that all came out, and it's just like now. The only thing I can say that's kind of different is that those were so buried within time, within internet history that it's like, how it's like only the diehard people that really kind of were following a certain wrestler, especially let's say like a person like Brian Kendrick, who was never like as big as obviously anyone that AEW had signed at that point, like your Bryan Danielsons and your CM Punks and your Moxleys and Jerichos and stuff. It's not that he was a big name of that stature, even though he had been in the WWE before, but it's just that, so not really you're going to really know about, to at least to an average viewer, you're probably not going to really know of at least that past comments on that were being made. For all I know, he made those comments while he was still under TNA, a TNA contract, which barely a whole lot of people was watching TNA other than people just want to see what kind of a fucking train wreck it was going to be, especially under Hogan and Bischoff and shit. Still, is this that you have to be people that might have been really avid followers of anything that was in TNA in like 2011, 12, whenever that Brian Kendrick made those comments on like some show or internet show or something, or like a podcast of something. And he was saying all this stuff on like that channel, that podcast, I think, channel on YouTube. So really, it's only people that really watch that. But in a way, it's still just, it's really bad because of, it's like, oh shit, I didn't know that this was existing. And so if you're a person, especially since in a way, a record label signing a band is not that far different from, let's say, like a wrestling promotion signing a wrestler to a contract. It's not that different. And so when you're doing that, you probably should be self-aware of their past history. And so this is kind of the case with Sentry Media. They probably knew exactly of the history, but they probably backed out of it because of, for one, they're like, maybe this was a bad idea, or two, oh God, we're going to get the backlash of a lifetime from this signing. No, because of, we're in an age where we're still trying to put a lot more respect on females. You know, and it's a really bad look if you're trying to sign someone that has a past history of abusive relationships. And there's so many bad things, and there's plenty of celebrities that have had this history. Whether or not that they've changed changed for the better is always up in the air. But if they really did a good job of relationship, maybe trying to close up those wounds that they obviously caused, then okay, maybe you're kind of deserving of a bit of a pass. But if you still haven't done anything to change your past history and conduct yourself better than when you did before, then obviously you ain't worthy of any sort of respect anymore. You're not deserving of at least anyone's forgiveness. So it's like, fuck you, go somewhere else. Find another label that might feel sorry for you and might give you a little handout, which is probably going to happen with Vektor at this point. They got dropped so fast by Sentry Media, they're now going to see if they can search out for some other, obviously a label that might feel sorry for them. And at this point, it's really kind of up in the air. Who will? I doubt Hell's Headbangers are probably going to sign Vektor. Who knows? They probably won't. I don't think High Roller will. AFM? It depends. It depends on what label at this point is going to take a chance on possibly signing Vektor. So I would say it's probably a good. This should be a good reason for the guys of Vektor to again just stay the hell away from this fucking guy. Yes, he may be one of your original members. He may have the voice, even though he kind of lost it in a way, because those two songs weren't even that great to begin with. They were kind of very mediocre and just middle-of-the-road shit. And it lost the sort of edge that at least the classic Vektor stuff had. So I think at this point they just should. It's just stay away from this guy. Break away from him once again and start some other band. And then you might end up getting signed by Sentry Media. Because I see a guy like David DeSanto is just going to keep you guys down. He ain't going to bring you guys up anymore. That train has left the fucking building at this point. That's left the building. Go find just find someone else. Find someone else. I don't think they think you should keep the Vektor name, because at this point, David DeSanto might have some sort of stronghold on the Vektor name, and nobody else can call themselves Vektor. So you know what? He's probably gonna fucking if they break away from him, he's probably just gonna find some other guys, and they'll call themselves Vektor, and they're probably gonna release things independently. And for all I know, that could be bad, because of who knows whether people will support them, other than maybe right-wing fuckheads might. So there you go. That's just where I'm at with the whole situation at this point with Vektor. So there you go. I had to get that in. It just was like, oh boy, I need to talk about this stuff and give my overall thoughts on it. There you go. So good luck to the guys of Vektor. All right, let's get into the Q&A segment, folks. God dang it, I'm gonna need to put this down somewhere. Okay, so the Q&A segment for this one is it's a real simple question, and it comes from, of course, my most popular subscriber. That is Stormrider. Stormrider had sent me a question. Now it was actually more of a thought of. It was basically for my review of the newest Ozzy Osbourne album, Patient Number 9. Stormrider basically wanted to give the thoughts on about the record, on what, they thought, what he thought, or she thought, whatever. So, but at the end of Stormrider's thoughts, it was on to, of course, the question, and that's actually, it was a real simple one, and that is, list my 15 favorite Ozzy Osbourne, I believe, solo era songs, not probably his stuff with Black Sabbath. And if someone tries to, or even let's say Stormrider tries to have me to list off my 15 favorite Black Sabbath songs, let alone my 10 or 5 favorite ones, I think you just need to take a 12-gauge shotgun and just blow my head off, because I don't think I'll ever be able to actually do that. I can't. It's impossible, okay? That'd be nearly impossible. It's at least easy for me to list off my 15 favorite Ozzy Osbourne solo era songs, but trying to list off my 15 favorite Black Sabbath songs, let alone ones with Ozzy Osbourne, that means the classic stuff from the self-titled, obviously including like 13. So no way I can't do that. It's gonna be impossible. Yes, they get that little pop. So there you go. So that's basically the overall question, is to list my 15 favorite, and that's listed from 15 to 1. And so I had a good time to think about what would be in my 15 favorite, Ozzy solo songs. I kind of knew exactly which songs I was going to put in there, but since I'm given the list, I guess you could say the task of putting together 15 songs, I'm like, what do I do there? Because I kind of have my idea what I want as my top 10, but what's going to be the ones on like the other 5? What's going to be the other 5 there? So I had a good day to think about this, and today I finally, before getting in front of the microphone here, I finally found, wow, what's the best way to attack this? And so I got my little word pad up here. I got the 15 songs listed, and so I'm going to go through them right now. So at number 15 right now, and it's the only song off of this album that's on here, and that is the title track from the Ultimate Sin album, that being The Ultimate Sin. Again, good track. Probably to me the best song on the entire record, even though I don't think it's a bad record. But for me, it's one that just kind of pops out at me as probably the absolute most Aussie sounding song on the album. I mean, it's not that bad of a record. I actually do enjoy it, but it's probably the one that I've barely spent time with because of I didn't really get to listen to that album until like in the last few years or so, because of I never had a copy of it when I was growing up, and so that's why it probably has the least impact on me. But I have heard at least this song on here. Actually, the only song I had heard off this one for even longer would be the song Spark in the Dark. And that's not even my favorite Aussie track to begin with. I probably am more forgiving of that track because of the kind of nostalgic sentiments that it holds on me. But I still would not consider that as my absolute favorite. In a way, I would, since I've heard The Ultimate Sin, the song itself, before, it's one of the one that really kind of I just gravitate towards. One of the one that really just kind of sticks out at me as being actually a pretty good track from Aussie. So I'm just putting that in number 15. Number 14 is the song Spiders, which, even though I think it was like a B-side single to a song, I know the song went up the B-side, which was from the same sessions as well, from the Bark at the Moon album, was as well, but Spiders was actually, for a long time, was actually a UK exclusive track to at least the UK pressing of Bark at the Moon, which has this sort of different colored logo, which is more like very light green or something, very bright green and blue colored Aussie logo. So it'd be for that pressing that Spiders was on. It was actually titled Spiders in the Night. But somehow in the US, it was called Spiders. But I think that's a really cool track, actually. I think it's a pretty cool song, and I always kind of really enjoyed it. It's definitely more of a slower song. It has more of a different kind of interesting vibe to it. But Bob Daisley's bass just really pops out in this one, and it's a pretty cool track. So I actually kind of put this as number 14 because I actually think it's one of my favorite sort of Aussie songs. It really kind of sticks out at me. Number 13 is Miracle Man, which is not going to be the only song from the No Rest for the Wicked album that's going to be on here. Again, that's the debut for Zakk Wylde in Aussie. Easily one of the first songs I ever heard off this one, probably besides maybe Crazy Babies, which is an alright song too, but it's not my favorite off that album, and it's definitely still not my favorite Aussie song, even though I heard that song first. But years later, I ended up hearing Miracle Man, and I actually really think it's a really good track. It's actually probably one of my favorites off that album, but I've yet to get to my absolute favorite. And I also do think that No Rest for the Wicked is actually an even better record than The Ultimate Sin. It's definitely a step up from that record. I know some people these days don't like Zakk Wylde very much just because of his overuse of the pinch harmonics and shit like that. But I think the stuff off of No Rest for the Wicked is a really good freaking album, and I really think it's classic Ozzy Osbourne, some really good shit on there. And I think the opening song, Miracle Man, is great, and I know if you're at least are good on your history when it comes to the story around the song Miracle Man, then I probably don't need to tell you very much, other than it's a very personal song to an extent. It's almost like a diss track. It was like one of those, it was like, ha, I'm the one that has the last laugh, and it was on a certain TV evangelist, Christian evangelist, whatever that was actually that was spinning all sorts of lies about Ozzy Osbourne, and finally one day he got his comeuppance, something bad had happened with him, and so finally he had the last laugh, and so Ozzy wrote the song as his response to the whole shenanigans. It's like, well, I finally, people finally figured out what kind of person I knew who you were, in a way, kind of track. So it's awesome in that regard. So that would be that's number 13 there. Number 12, Desire. It's actually the only song off of the No More Tears album that's actually made my top 15 list. It's not that I think that's a bad record. I actually featured No More Tears on this channel already, and it is up there as one of my favorite Aussie albums. It's also the burp there again. Sorry. It was the very first Aussie album that I'd ever heard. So it's still a good album. I still enjoy it. Just I don't really play it as much as, let's say, when it comes to the more obvious albums. So that's just where I'm at. But it's a good track. I could have probably featured, let's say, Mr. Tinker Train, or even some of the other heavier tracks off the album. But for some reason, Desire is the one that really kind of pops out at me. And it's the one that really just, I don't know, the one I just gravitate towards the most. Probably because it's a lot more hookier. It's got a real catchier riff. It sounds more like a lot of the classic Ozzy songs to an extent. So I actually think it's actually one of the better songs, actually one of the best songs off the album. And it's probably the one that I just gravitate more towards. So it's a good track. So I got that number 12. Finally, at number 11, it is Waiting for Darkness off of Bark at the Moon. Awesome track. I think it was a good way to end Bark at the Moon, and I have yet to even get to my, let's say, Album of the Week episode on Bark at the Moon. But all I'm just going to say there is that it's got a really good atmosphere to it, and it's a really good freaking track from beginning to end. It's definitely a more slower song, but it's got a nice sort of dark atmosphere and mood to it that I think is really good for the month of October. Actually, the entire record kind of is. Except if you took out So Tired and replaced it with Spiders, then you probably get a really well-rounded album. At least if you're going by the US track listing, you probably get a much better well-rounded album if you took out So Tired, which is probably the closest to the worst song off of Bark at the Moon in my opinion. But it's still not a bad album altogether, and Waiting for Darkness just, I think, ends the album perfectly to an extent. It's really good. Finally, now let's get to what I would say is my top 10 favorite Aussie songs. Number 10, since I already had Miracle Man on here, and I mentioned already that that's not the only song to be from the No Rest for the Wicked album to be featured in my list. Here we at the last one from that album to be on this list. That being Bloodbath in Paradise. His song basically about the Manson family and the whole murders and stuff. And since, again, he was living out in LA still at this point. But great. I would say this is probably one of the best songs off that record. I love this song. It's a heavy track. And musically, it just sounds like classic Aussie. It's like, this is where you can tell this is a big step up from anything off of The Ultimate Sin. Just easily one of my favorite tracks off that one. It's like the first time I heard No Rest for the Wicked and this song came on, I'm like, oh God, yes, this is fucking great. So I would say it's easily one of my favorites. But again, it's only at number 10. Number 9 is actually 2 songs. Because for me, I can't listen to this song without listening to the other to an extent. And that is Revelations, parentheses, Mother Earth, / Steal Away the Night. I got these 2 tracks at number 9 because of they bleed together. It's like after Revelations ends, it goes straight into Steal Away the Night. And for some reason, I can't pull these tracks apart from each other. I can't. To me, it's a 1-2 package. So they belong as one song, and it's a great track. I love these 2 tracks, anyways. But just as one, it's one badass fucking song, and it really ended out, Blizz of Oz just greatly. Just a heavy track in Revelations, very Black Sabbath oriented. You can tell that when it came to at least these first 2 or 3, especially these first 2 to an extent. You really could tell that Ozzy is still trying to cling on to that Black Sabbath sound. He's still trying to cling on to it. And the song Revelations is very much still in the vein of something like off of like Sabotage, or even like Sabbath Bloody Sabbath or Volume 4. It's like kind of stuck in there, and it is a fucking great track. And Steal Away the Night, it's definitely much more of a straight ahead metal track. That's kind of, in a way, to me, it's very reminiscent of, let's say, Stealer off of British Steel by Judas Priest. It's a very similar type pacing and riff, and song-wise, it's a little similar. And these are both great freaking tracks. They're both great. But Steal Away the Night just, I think, belongs with Revelations, parentheses, Mother Earth. It belongs there. So I got that number 9. Number 8 is Little Dolls, again, off of Diary of a Madman. This is an awesome track. I would say this has almost became difficult because of when I was given the task of putting together this list. I mean, I put this list together or whatever, but what's the better way to phrase shit and whatnot, But when I was given the task to put this list together, I was just like, God damn, I could almost put in the entire Diary of a Madman record because of that is still easily my absolute favorite Aussie record. It really is. Just as far as even solo-wise, it's one of my favorite Aussie records. Just from start to finish, there's just, to me, not a bad song on it. It's just so well-rounded, and to me, it's just perfectly put together. It's like there's just not a dud on there for me. Even the stuff that might be a little bit on the corny side or hokey, whatever, even it just comes off friggin' enjoyable. And I think it's, as far as when it comes to solo records, one that's just felt like the most genuinely put together. There's not a bad song there, but picking a song from that album to be on this list or picking a few felt like almost an endurance test, because they're like, holy shit, what the fuck am I going to do? How can I? If I'm not going to be able to put the entire record on this list, what songs can I? And obviously, it became easy. It's like Little Dolls, fucking great track. I like it. It's a very hooky track, and I dig it. Next one up might be the first of the big hits, I guess, to be put on this record. One of the most obvious ones. But I think it's... because, again, there's no Crazy Train on this list. There's no Goodbye the Romance. There's no Bark at the Moon on here. There's definitely no So Tired. There's definitely no... what else? I mean, Ultimate Sin was kind of a minor hit, but not a huge hit. There's no Spark in the Dark on here. And Miracle Man actually was. I take that back. Miracle Man kind of was, too, but there's no Crazy Babies on here. There's no... Mom, I'm Coming Home or anything. There's none of the big songs on here. None of the big ones. So, this to me, it's like I'm picking ones that just really meant more to me and just was like, these are fucking great. And so, what I picked for number 7 is Mr. Crowley. Yes, it's one of the most obvious ones on here, but I can't deny that it's a freaking great put together track. It's a heavy song, very Black Sabbath inspired, and even the Don Aries little synth sound is freaking great. It's I think gives the song its nice eerie atmosphere, and it gives it sort of its darkness and its heaviness. So the fact that it's dealing with Aleister Crowley, who he had been reading the book of Crowley since he was in Black Sabbath. That's what he gave that book to, I think it was the book that he gave to Geezer Butler that ended up giving us the song Black Sabbath. So he finally actually does a song about the guy that basically inspired the track. It was a little story. It was a nightly incident that happened with Geezer Butler. You can say it's like a ghostly horror story. And that's what, again, gave to the inspiration for the lyrics of Black Sabbath. And now he's doing a song around that guy that it just became an inspiration to an extent. That just was the cause of all the shit. So in a way, he actually paid to I guess I can say, the ghost creator of heavy metal. There you go. So he does something to Mr. Crowley. And it's a freaking great track, and it easily is one of my absolute favorites off that record. Then, of course, we get into Diary of a Madman. That was a perfect track that end off the Diary of a Madman album, so I'm not going to say anything else about it. So there we go. Now on to number 5 I've got here is Sentry of Eternity. So there's definitely been at least a few songs from the Bark at the Moon album that made it onto this list. Again, I got Spiders, Waiting for Darkness, and Sentry of Eternity. These are by the three that really just stuck out more at me. And this song is a heavy track. I love the sort of beginning, sort of very eerie synth of it. And then, of course, finally it gets to another very fast-paced, heavy riffing. It's like, this is definitely close to even more metal for Ozzy Osbourne. Like, you can tell easily. I would say the first three albums are like the most metal records to an extent from Ozzy. This sound the more darkest. They had more metallicness to them, and I think they're just great shit to me. And Sentry of Eternity is a fucking awesome track too, off of the Aussie Bark at the Moon. So there we go. I'm not going to speak any too much there. Finally, at number 4, I got is Believer again, off the Diary of a Madman. There's been plenty of stuff off that record that has made onto this list, and I just love this song from beginning to end. So I'm not going to say too much. Number 3, I got I Don't Know. Obviously, the first time... Something about my phone. I got a little message or something. Actually, it's more of a notification than really a message. Back to the song I Don't Know. The first time I heard this song was when I actually had gotten Blizzard of Oz. Even though it was the remixed version. Yeah, it's the shitty remix / re-recorded version from 2002. But that was the first time I heard that album, and when this song opened up the record, I immediately fell in love with this song. To me, this just had a nice... It was very rockin' in a way. I loved it. It's like, it was still somewhat, even with the very polished remixing and re-recording, it still sounded raw. And I just dug it from beginning. Same thing when it comes to the next track here, which again at number 2 is Suicide Solution. I almost could have had this as number 1. I almost wanted this as my number 1. But then I thought, you know what? There's only one song I can have as my number 1 favorite Ozzy Osbourne track. At least solo-wise. Not talking Black Sabbath. But Suicide Solution, I love it. I know this was definitely a kind of a rehashed riff, even though it was being worked on when Randy Rhoads was in Quiet Riot. I think it was from was it Laughing Gas? It was like the Jam or something that was recorded live that ended up finally seeing the light of day as part of that Quiet Riot sort of Randy Rhoads years disc or something. And this riff was a part of it. And so he finally took this riff and made it into an actual song with Ozzy Osbourne. And it's just a great freaking riff. I love it. Many people thought for years that this was... I mean, I talked about it anyways in my Album of the Week episode on Blizzard of Oz from 2 years ago. This was a bit of a topic of controversy because many people thought this was pro-suicide, but really, in reality, it was actually anti-suicide. It was obviously... And it was anti-suicide, and it was also anti-alcohol abuse. And since Ozzy Osbourne had lost, Bon Scott, who had died, at least it was of alcohol poisoning or something, and that's what, and since he was dealing with substance abuse, especially alcohol abuse, is a side he had to write a song that really reflected his personal turmoil in substance abuse and alcohol abuse and all that. So that's why he did Suicide Solution. So it's a more a more positive message than really a dark kind of message. So there you go. And they took it that way instead of reading into the lyrics. Parents were idiots back then, people, and they're still idiots today. So there we go. Finally, at number 1, I have is Over the Mountain. Yes. If there's only one song that I'm going to pick as my absolute favorite Ozzy Osbourne song, it is Over the Mountain, because this was one of the first songs I ever heard. Because of the first Ozzy album I heard, again, was No More Tears. However, my mom had at least a copy of the Ozmonth Comet best of or compilation disc. And even though it starts off with 2 demo recordings from Black Sabbath, which are really early recordings of the song Black Sabbath and War Pigs that were recorded during at least, 1969 at least, around the time before, recording the very first record. But after those two songs, and it's on to Over the Mountain. I heard this song for the first time, and I was like, all right, that's it. It's just, immediately I fell in love with it. Immediately. What a fantastic track. One of the, probably, I think, an even better opener than I Don't Know. Actually, I think it might be the best opening song I think Ozzy has ever had on any record, to be exact. Again, I do love I Don't Know, but also I do think that Over the Mountain might be an even better album opener for any Ozzy record. I think even better than like Bark at the Moon. It's better than Ultimate Sin. It's definitely better than Miracle Man, Mr. Tinker Train, even in my opinion as well. It's just a much more well-rounded song with some of Randy Rhoads' best guitar playing, and it's just a heavy track. Got a lot of hook to it. Very catchy, and it's just almost galloping to an extent as well. This is like the definition of early 80s heavy metal. So there we go. It just belongs up there, and so therefore it is my absolute favorite Ozzy solo song. So Over the Mountain is number 1. There you go, folks. And thank you to Storm Rider for sending in that question. So I hope that answers it. So there you go. So I went on quite a bit. I got in some interesting topics, especially a topic around Vektor, and I got into obviously my top 15 favorite Aussie solo songs. So there we go. I'm running out of breath right here, so I'm just going to end it right here. I hope all of you at least enjoyed these topics. If you have any sort of favorite, or at least any sort of opinions about some of these, especially the whole story surrounding Sentry Media signing and then immediately dropping Vektor, and then of course my top 15 list. Actually, what are your top 15 favorite songs, or maybe top 10, top 5, whatever favorite Aussie songs? You can leave those in the comment section below. So with that, I hope all of you enjoyed this heavy thrasher saying I'm out, and I'll see you all later. Take care, everyone.